Hey guys, Big Andrew here. Thought from the bench today. I want to start off by reading a little story out of my Athletes Bible, my FCA Athletes Bible. Exodus chapter 2. Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe at the Nile while her servant girls walked along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds. Her slave girl took it, opened it, and saw him, the child. And there he was, a little boy, crying. She felt sorry for him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew boys." When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she named him Moses, because she said, "I drew him out of the water." Moses, whether you believe in Scripture or not, Moses is a pretty important person in history. You know, we have the Code of Hammurabi, which is a code of laws where a lot of nations derive the laws from that code. And we also have the law of Moses and the Ten Commandments. This is the story of Moses' birth. This is the story of Moses' very early life. He's months old at this time, and he grows up in the house of Pharaoh. The history and the story of Moses is that his parents were Jewish, and Pharaoh wanted to kill all the Jewish babies that were in Egypt, especially the boys, the big boys that were in Egypt. And his parents didn't want him to die. They didn't want to kill him. So when he was born, they hid him for 3 months. He was a healthy child. He was a large, healthy child, and how you hide a 3-month-old baby from people, I don't know, because they cry and they scream. All of my kids did that. So I don't know how that happened, but they were able to hide him for 3 months, and they put him in a basket, put him in the Nile River, and just let him go. I don't know what the reasoning was behind that, if that was a regular thing. I don't know what was going on with that. But the basket goes down, and Pharaoh's daughter finds it, sends her servant girl to go get it. Servant girl brings it out. They open the basket. Bam, there's a baby boy in there. And she names him Moses. And he grows up in Pharaoh's house as Pharaoh's daughter's adopted son. And he grows up like an Egyptian, even though he's Jewish. And everybody knows he's Jewish. He has the sign of the Jews. He's been circumcised. And the other kids, of course, are Egyptian, and they don't have that sign necessarily. He does. And everybody knows he's Jewish, but he grows up in Pharaoh's house. And Pharaoh, being a dad, can't say no to his daughter, so he lets her adopt him, you know. If you know the story, then this will be old news to you. If you don't know the story, I'm going to tell you what happens next. For 40 years, he grows up, and when he turns 40, around his 40th birthday, I guess, he decides he's going to go and see how the slaves are doing, right? He knows he's different. He knows he's a Jew. He's a Hebrew. So he goes out to see how the slaves are going and things are going, and he doesn't like it. He's upset. So he tries to make a change, and he sees an Egyptian beating up on a Hebrew, and he doesn't like it, so he stands up to him, and he kills the Egyptian and lets the Hebrew run away, and he buries the Egyptian and hides the body. The next day, somebody confronts him about it, and he thinks, oh no, Pharaoh's going to hear about this, so I'm going to run away. So he runs away and spends another 40 years in the backside of the desert, where he meets this guy named Jethro, marries her daughter, or his daughter, and has kids, and he becomes a shepherd. So this guy was born into poverty, a slave's house, is pulled out of that and raised in a palace. When he's old enough and he's a man, he sees something and he wants to make a change in people's lives, and he goes out and he's rejected. He goes, oh no, and he get away, and he runs away, and he spends 40 years in the backside of the desert. Now he's 80 years old, according to the scriptures, and he's 80 years old. God comes to him in the form of a burning bush while he's out there leading sheep. He's out there leading sheep, and there's a burning bush, and he turns to look at it and goes, oh wow, look at this bush. It's burning, but the leaves really aren't on fire. There's smoke, but it's not being consumed. It's just going to continually burning. And he goes to see this miraculous sight, and as he goes over there, he's told to take off his shoes as you're approaching holy ground and everything. And God speaks to him out of the bush and says, you're going to go rescue the people. You're going to go rescue the children of Israel, the Jews, the Hebrews, are going to bring them out of Egypt, out of slavery to the promised land. Moses had to do a lot of restarts in his life. You know, he started out without a lot of hope, supposed to die, ended up in the best possible situation. Then he started to make a change. He didn't really get the traction he was hoping for. And he started to make a new life as a shepherd, and God calls him to do something else. He had a very unique life, this Moses, and all these thoughts and all this knowledge and stuff that he had. He is starting over. And that's what I'm talking about, starting over. Sometimes it's okay to start over. But it may not be necessary to reinvent yourself. See, Moses never reinvented himself. I had this conversation with somebody recently, and I said, I need to reinvent myself for something. They said, no, you don't. God has given you all the tools you need. And that's the truth, really. God has given you all the tools you need. God gave Moses all the tools he needed to go back to Egypt and to lead Israel for 40 years through the wilderness and do all the other stuff that's in the story and to get the 10 Commandments and everything written down. God used Moses because he had everything he needed in him. He just needed to let God use that part of him and mold it and refine it. It took some time, but he refined it and made it something worth using. Sometimes you need to start over. Sometimes you need to do something different. It doesn't mean you need to reinvent who you are or reinvent your ideas or whatever. Maybe there's something you need to reject and something you need to leave behind and something you need to learn. But God has given you everything you need to do what it is that you need to do with your life. So my thought today for you is it's okay to start over. It's fine. It can be good to start over. But don't try to reinvent something that God has already made. Let him do what he's going to do with it, and he'll make it better.